broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Houston, Texas. It's time for Houston Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
Hello, Houston. Trisha Stetzel here, bringing you another episode of Houston Business Radio. It is my pleasure to have my guest on today, who was introduced to me by John Bricado, who always introduces me to the most amazing people. I want to introduce you to Angela Kim. She is an empowerment coach, a Reiki master, realtor, Illumines-Core LLC, and Daytown International LLC. Angela, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you on today.
It's so great to be here. I'm so nervous.
I
This is
know.
part of me.
Yeah.
And I think I'm just get to get it out and say it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Angela, we're going to tackle some tough stuff today, right? But before we get there, tell us who you are.
Well, I am a mom of a 9-year-old boy, and he is turning 10 in May. And I am actually working on building an empire, both in real estate and in the mental health world. And it all stems from my backstory, what I went through and where I came from, and experiencing the things that I experienced. That really helps to shape who I am and how I've experienced life and how I can help people see life a little bit differently. So I think I just summarized myself.
No, that's beautiful. And I love that you introduced yourself as mom first, right? Because you are. And I think a lot of times as women, we put everyone else ahead of us. And I think the thing we're going to tackle today is our overworked nervous system, because we are always thinking about all of the other things, right? And sometimes we have to stop and really assess ourselves and where we are and the things that we should be working on internally and externally for ourselves. So why don't we start with, Angela, the whole idea of just being overworked. And as women, we are always caring for others. I like to talk about putting our mask on first. You've been on a flight, listeners, anyone who's been on a flight, the flight attendant always tells us to put our mask on first before we help others. So, Angela, how does that play into the work that you're doing on yourself and even the work that you're doing with your clients?
Well, for me, the selfish/unselfish thing is, whenever I remind my clients, hey, or you have a habit of worrying about other people and worrying about this and that, and you forget about yourself at the end of the day. There's nothing left. And whenever I say that, I'm like, okay, let me check with myself. Have I been doing what I've been preaching, and how am I implementing it? And so I really, the work that I do and how I coach myself constantly is really the work that's constant, because we have those dark negative thoughts that come up, especially when we're overworked and we have, we're working from fumes. There's nothing left. There's it. And I'm getting emotional right now because I'm seeing the pattern and the effects of an overworked nervous system. Excuse me.
It's okay.
I have a hard time with death. And seeing my family members pass away from stress over and over is just like that constant reminder for me to really be self-aware and teach my son and my clients how to learn that practice of self-awareness. And it's almost like back to basics of life, right? And how are your manners with yourself? How are you treating yourself? What are you saying to yourself? And that's really what I do, is help people shift. And that's why I call myself a paradigm shift advisor in that sense, is helping people to shift the ways that they look at themselves in the different areas.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, and I appreciate you being so vulnerable today. And I think we should always be working on ourselves. And I think you, as a coach, are particularly special because you know what your clients are going through, because you go through it as well. And I think that that's something really special that you bring to the table. Um, do you want to talk a little bit about your backstory and why you do the work that you do?
Yes. Um, I'll start with my most recent backstory, and I think it kind of ties into my whole life story. Is a few days before the pandemic is when I had my miscarriage. It's my first and hopefully the only one. And that experience tore me apart. And it helped me realize that I had overcome PTSD, trauma over and over again, not realizing that I did. Um, the miscarriage was a very somatic thing that happened. It was the trauma from my body, and I had a challenging time coming to terms with the fact that, wow, I had lived through, high intense anxiety and PTSD. And it just helped me realize that I had complex PTSD. It was really hard to acknowledge and to accept that at first, because I was like, I've been doing this personal development work. I've been working on myself. I'm a coach. I went to, my background's in mental health counseling. I've worked with soldiers. I've worked with schizophrenia patients. It's nothing in that mental health area really scares me. And yet I was scared of myself.
Mhm. Yeah,
And I
that's
didn't realize, the trauma that I was experiencing at the time, and why it was so hard. Why did my manners go away, overnight? And so it was a challenge to accept that this new me was something that I get to work on. It's a piece of work.
yeah. And how how important is it to know that at the triggers, right? Those things that are setting us off. So we've talked about our overworked nervous system, which started the conversation, and then leaning back into your backstory, which is not just overworked mentally, but your body, right? Was in a position and overworked from the miscarriage. What are some of the things that you worked on personally for yourself to move through that trauma, and even some of the things that you work with your clients as they move through trauma as well?
Well, the I will say the biggest lesson that I learned through this experience is my compassion, grace, and patience.
Mm.
Um, and really deciphering, is this person gaslighting, or are they really saying that they are tired and that they're really struggling, and really hearing and feeling, engaging where they're at. Because I've been through the challenges of PTSD and the complex PTSD. It opened up everything that I worked on. Was, as a younger child, my first suicidal thought was around 5 or 6. And that's not normal. I realized later on in life that for a child to want to kill themselves at that age, it means that there's a lot of trauma
Mm.
that I had gone through, because my mom was very suicidal. and she would have a lot of threats about her life and just not wanting to be here, and it's too much. And so that's what I thought life was.
Mhm.
But I overcame those things. And when PTSD from the miscarriage opened up complex PTSD, it just opened up everything. All my negative thoughts were roaring back because it was gone. I worked on it. I tamed that part of myself. And it was
Mhm.
almost like this thing where you want this change in your life. And so, hey, you're going to really dig deep and really learn the nuances, how to gauge your energy level, how to work with your nervous system, how to really calm yourself as much as possible. And it takes a lot of practice and a lot of intention.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you were doing this work on yourself, is that where you found the part of you who wanted to help others with the same challenges?
Yes. It's every time I go through a life stage or a life cycle or a loss in my life, it just helps me see another aspect of, okay, this is why I'm doing this.
Mhm.
Um, and this last miscarriage, and I'm still in the month of the anniversary. It was last week, was the anniversary of my miscarriage. And I'm still going through it.
Mhm.
Experiencing the loss of a child is very different from the loss of a parent. I've not lost a parent in the physical sense. I've lost my dad. He had a brain tumor, um, and he had surgeries multiple times when I was in middle school, high school. So that's building up to the traumas and the losses that I've experienced. And so I'm very considerate and compassionate when it comes to the energy of what people are saying because um, I realize that I'm highly sensitive. And that highly sensitivity came from a lot of the trauma that I experienced. Um, and so when I see another individual going through what I've been through and I see that, I can understand and I'm more compassionate when it comes to coaching my clients and when it comes to giving them that space to just be themselves and actually feel through that experience, whatever emotion it is that they're feeling. It could be anger, it could be sadness, it could be depressive feelings, and it's okay. It's just that phase because it comes and goes. And as long as we allow them to feel, and I allow myself to feel and acknowledge and accept that this is what I went through and that it was rough and it's okay to experience it that way, then the change and the movement forward and healing really it's like it catapults you. It's faster than a domino effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the energy that you bring is perfect for the people that you work with that because you've been there before them. You walked in their shoes and you absolutely understand. So, while we're on the topic of energy, I want to talk about you being a Reiki master because not everybody may understand what that is. So, can you talk about that just a little bit and how you use that in your practice as well?
Oh, that's a great question because Reiki Master, it's the practice of working with the energy and really tuning into energies. And everybody has energy, right? This world is made of atoms. And so recognizing that we all feel and sense a shift in energy and space, and then recognizing and tying it back to, hey, this is what makes us us. And if we think something, then we're emitting it. And so the Reiki that I do, it's a lot of energy work within the system of a person, yet I'm actually working on their emotional system more than just what other Reiki masters do. Reiki masters, they probably teach more on how to treat and move the energy systems in certain organs, and they're different, practitioners. mine is specifically for the mind and the emotional bodies. And so it's really working with, okay, how can we move this emotion so that way you can feel it instead of being numb or thinking that everything's okay, and facing it and actually going through it instead. And so I work with energy systems that way. I hope that explains it. I'm not really sure if I'm doing a good job of it.
Oh, I think it's fantastic, and it goes along with everything that we've been talking about already, right? Which is those the energy systems and the emotion and the way that you can feel people's emotions. I think this all comes together, and it's a little interesting that your before we started recording, your dog came in the room, and you and I started talking about that, and then my dogs moved, and it's not because we said anybody's dog's name. It was the energy that the two of us, were emoting into the room, right? And our dogs picked up on it. And I think that's really interesting. Your dog came in the room for a reason. And then mine woke up because we were having a conversation around that. Um, I'd love for you, if people are really interested, Angela, in connecting with you and understanding more about what you do, your coaching practice, or even knowing more about your story, what's the best way for folks to find you?
I would say for right now, the best way is to reach me. What is it called? Message me on Instagram. And it's going to be at angelakim.111. And just message me and say, hey, found out about you. I heard about you through Trisha's podcast. And that's the best way.
Yeah, fantastic. So Angela Kim 111 on IG, and
Angela
you
dot 111.
dot 111. Angela Kim dot 111 is her handle on IG, and you guys can just put Houston Business Radio in there, or Trisha, and Angela knows exactly how you guys found her. I really appreciate you sharing your story, Angela, and I know there's a lot of emotion around it. You work in this space of loss and trauma and holistic approaches to healing, and even core issues from lack of verbal communication and listening skills. Can we dive into that just a little bit? And this idea of the lack of verbal communication and listening skills between, I'm guessing that that's between people and helping others communicate better with each other.
Yes. I mean, when I wrote that, it was actually more of how is it affecting across the board, across
Okay.
every, with doctors, with yourself, with your spouse, with your kids. Um, well, we don't really put much intention towards the way we communicate with the individuals around us or put much thought into it. We just say things and it doesn't make sense to people. And sometimes lack of, listening or lack of asking questions can create the miscommunication or
Mm.
misdiagnosis. Or, if we don't tell the doctor everything that's going on, and we're like, well, I don't want to tell you this because it's embarrassing. Well, they're there for a reason, or parents are there for a reason. And if parents don't cultivate that with their kids, that
Mm.
it's safe for them to communicate with them instead of a judging, stance,
Mhm.
then that's where people get complacent. And my point in all that is over time, the hurt and even the trauma that builds up, or the resentment that gets built up in a lot of individuals, or the mental health area in today's world, I would say that it's not knowing how to communicate what's going on, not knowing how to prep people and, hey, this is going to be an interesting conversation, instead of just diving in and not having a route when we speak, and learning how to convey what our thoughts are. Most
Mhm.
people are speaking and they're only painting half of the picture. And
Mhm.
we're expecting, right, others to understand and know exactly what we're saying. Yet we're not saying the whole thing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it, as you were talking through that, I was thinking it may make someone suppress their feelings because they don't feel like they have a safe place to communicate. They've never had that openness or someone like you that they can openly communicate with without judgment, right? And I think that's so important. I spend a lot of time on communication skills, typically in the office, less in the personal space, but I know how important it can be, verbal and nonverbal, right? As we
Mhm.
communicate with other human beings. All right. So I'm going to go full circle back to this overworked nervous system. And I think that you talk in part of your write up, you talk about artificial stimulation. So is there some part of that that really makes our nervous system so overworked? I know there's real things. There are things that we do and we get worried about, and our kids and our families and our work, and but is there some part of this artificial stimulation that's causing some of that? And how do we know?
Yes, the artificial stimulation that I'm referring to, it's like the media, the
Uh,
news, the shows that we watch, the people that we listen to, the people that we talk to, or the books that we read. Um, it's healthy to a certain extent to trigger ourselves if we're stuck and numb, to feel certain emotions, because that's where my specialty in trauma and PTSD, working with those, comes into play. However, oh, I just lost my train of thought. Oh my goodness.
it's
Oh,
okay. Yeah, no worries. We were talking about artificial stimulation, how all of this outside communication can really heighten, right, the way we feel. Hmm.
yes, yes, I was talking about getting triggered, right? So when we get triggered, a lot of times in my coaching practice, I encourage my clients who tend to have a tendency of numbing their emotions out and not really recognizing that there's something bothering them, yet they're not realizing that they're behaving or reacting in certain ways. And so I encourage them to use artificial stimulation to trigger certain emotions. Those are helpful. Yet the unhelpful side of it is when people are watching a lot of horror movies, or they're watching, a lot of war movies or documentaries. Those are helpful, yet too much of anything, anything in this world, is unhealthy and unhelpful. And so that's where I was saying the artificial stimulation is creating the heightened, the mind's still overstimulated, right? So the body is going to be working and it's going to be in fight or flight while you're watching the movie.
Hmm.
And you're not realizing that every little bit adds up. It's almost like every little compliment that we give a child, it helps them to be confident and boost them, and it helps them grow, and it's nourishment. And the things that every little bit that we, chip away at our shoulders and chip away at our heart, and or the traumas that we watch, it does the same thing. And so that's the artificial thing that I was talking about.
Yeah, no, so I see both sides of it where it can be good for healing, if done purposeful, right? But on the other hand, if we're just filling our brains, listen, I am not a news gal. I hate having the news on because I feel like it heightens my stress. So when I go in the house, I'm like, Mom, turn the TV off. Let's put something else on, right? Because I think there's so much outside. um, I don't in my head, it's arguing, right? No, I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. So I want to tackle one other thing because it comes up a lot with women that I work with, which is comparison. So I'm using social media as an example. A lot of us will get on social media and scroll, and most people on social media are only telling part of the story. So I'm just kind of bringing this full circle, right, around some of the things that we suppress, the things that we aren't communicating. We're only communicating the good. But then I maybe sit alone and scroll through and then compare myself to all of the people who are amazing and beautiful and doing amazing things. So, what are your thoughts around the whole idea of comparing myself or ourselves to others on social media?
Mm. that's a rough, I mean, that's comparison it's actually one of the key things that I work on with my clients. Because how can we compare trauma? You know, how can we compare that person's progress or that person's accomplishments or their looks if you have no idea what they've done to get to that or what it took, right? The discipline is something that people don't really see on the backside. And the comparison, again, it's a very self-defeating habit. And these are just habits, right? The habit of overthinking, the habit of comparing, the habit of worrying. So these are the things I really work on with my clients, especially, I work on it with both male and female clients, right? It's just my words. I use them a little bit differently so it works well with that population.
Yeah.
Right? So women worry and then men, they just think.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd really be curious to know I know who some of your clients or potential clients might be, but I also know that many of them may have been through something that they're scared to have a conversation with someone about. So, what words do you have for those people who are listening to the show today that might just need to have a conversation with you? What are your words for them today to let them know that it's okay just to reach out and have a conversation with you?
The word, honestly, I can just say that no matter what we do or what they have done or what they've gone through or lack thereof, right? Because sometimes we judge ourselves more harshly than anyone else. And so, I would say if somebody who is a believer of God or the universe, it's look inside of you because that's where you can find that God or that universe. And so it takes you sitting with someone who can actually just accept you for what you've done and who you've been, and then help you recognize that the you right now is someone who gets to be loved and heard and seen.
I love that. Angela, thank you for being here today, being vulnerable, talking about working on yourself. We all need to be working on ourselves all of the time and really understand the triggers and where that's coming from. I'd love for you to share as we finish up today a success story, either your own or one that you've had with a client.
Um, I think right now you can see that I'm my success story. However, I have a client that is very near and dear to me. I actually keep in touch with a lot of my clients that I've had. Um, they're a former Olympic wrestler in Hawaii, and former for a reason. They had a traumatic brain injury, not once, but multiple times.
Mm.
Um, So, when you're in the Olympics, that's like your dream. That's your sport. That is your passion. That is what you live for, right? And so it's almost like my sport of coaching and working with people's mental state. This individual was working on their physical, mental, everything. So when they went through the traumatic brain injury, they were pushing themselves way harder than they should have the first time it happened. And they came to me at almost like at the last resort. Their family member, nothing was working. Therapy treatments, the cell treatment, neural stem cells, those weren't working. Nothing was really helping. And they finally gave me a chance to work with them. And I said, let's work with you from the basic, from bottom up. This is rehabilitating, because rehabilitation comes with a lot of acceptance and just realizing, okay, this is my new me. how can I take what has happened to me and transform it into something that I can help others, do better the next time around? Because he's now coaching other wrestlers. He has his own gym now, and he's passionately helping other students, the kids that he's coaching, and how to take care of themselves, how to work on their mental, emotional, and physical state, because there's that soul part of your passion, right? And learning how to shift that around from pain to purpose.
That's beautiful. Angela, thank you so much for being with me today. It's been a joy to have you on the show. And again, I appreciate your vulnerability, telling your story. And I would love for people to connect with you if they're feeling that energy from you. So, how do you want people to connect with you?
They can just connect with me through the Instagram and just reach out that way. And AngelaKim.111, and just message me there and say, hey, I found you out through Trisha's podcast. And it's called Houston Business Radio. And so just let me know that you heard about my story and it resonated with you. And let's have a chat. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Trisha.
Thank you. I appreciate you very much for being here. So AngelaKim.111 on Instagram. I'll have all of our other social channels available for you in the show notes so that you can just point and click if you're sitting in front of your computer. Angela, thank you again for being with me today. That's all the time we have for today's show. Join us next time for another exciting episode of Houston Business Radio. Until then, stay tuned, stay inspired, and keep thriving in the Houston business community.